men are unique, becoming classic rivals. These two men, fierce, powerful fighters, dangerous so much so that no other fighter will go near them. To the jaw, and Robinson is down for the second time in his career.
Guys, welcome to a classic film review of 1980's Raging Bull, starring Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci and Cathy Moriarty. Now, this was directed by Martin Scorsese, and it's the searing biopic of the infamous American professional boxer Jake LaMotta, who was world middleweight champion between 1949 and 1951. Now, LaMotta's nickname was the Bronx Bull or the Raging Bull. Such was his technique of stalking and pounding his prey despite taking massive punishment himself. And for me personally, this vies with Scorsese's Goodfellas as my favourite of his movies. For me, it's his masterpiece on a technical level, and it's certainly up there in the top tier of Robert De Niro's astounding performances, winning him his second Oscar. Now, it's a really tough watch in places, such as its unflinchingly real performances, its matter-of-fact domestic abuse, and stylishly nasty violence both in and out the ring. Now, although it wasn't released until late 1980, Raging Bull can almost be seen as one of the final great films of the 1970s. Let's take a look. So, Raging Bull, which is a great nickname and a great title for a film, by the way, is a story of the Bronx-born fighter Jake LaMotta starting his career attempting to get a title fight. Coming up in Little Italy and surrounded by unsavoury characters, he gets himself involved in throwing a fight for the local mobsters and temporarily barred from the ring. He comes back, however, and the film chronicles his six-fight rivalry with Sugar Ray Robinson. Now, by the time Raging Bull arrived, there had already been 2 Rocky movies, and for inspirational feel-good sports movie thrills, you can't go too far wrong with those films. Now, that's not what this film is. This is essentially a domestic drama, a study of abuse, jealousy, self-destruction, and an examination of how the same violence and temper that destroys his life outside the ring is what makes him a formidable opponent inside it.
Is taking terrible punishment on the ropes as Joseel bangs him with left and right to the head. Another left, another right to the jaw. And LaMotta turns around. He's been playing possum. He's got Joseel hurt. He gets the right hand of the body to the left to the jaw. Another left and a right to the head. And
I think that's probably what drove Robert De Niro to pester Scorsese into teaming up with him on this project. What makes a fighter great? How do you separate the animalistic primal urge to punch someone else's face to bits whilst having someone try and do likewise to yours? And LaMotta's story shows that it's not every fighter that can operate on that level and still go home and be civil to his family and friends.
Open the door.
Get away!
Open the door.
No.
Why'd you do it, huh? Why'd you do it?
I didn't do it!
Why'd you do it? Why'd you do it?
Now, the titular boxer's story is told in one big flashback sequence, essentially. It's bookended by his appearance at the Barbers and Plaza Hotel Theatre in 1964 as he's practicing his questionable stand-up act. Now, in these scenes, we have Robert De Niro famously bloated and overweight and without the use of CGI or a bodysuit after production was shut down so the actor could go on an eating spree around Italy and France, putting on about 60 pounds of fat, essentially. It's an unhealthy but stunning transformation. Now, in stark contrast to that, De Niro underwent gruelling boxing training and sparred in the ring with the real LaMotta in roughly 1,000 rounds, and being the method-acting smarty pants that he is, actually entered 3 Brooklyn boxing matches and won 2 of them. Now, I'm sure I read that there's only about 10 or 12 minutes of actual boxing spread throughout this 129-minute movie, but what we get is a mind-boggling Martin Scorsese masterclass in directing. Now, this isn't the most realistic boxing footage ever shot, and that's not what Scorsese and his director of photography Michael Chapman are aiming for here. This is more about the sensory overload that is being inside a boxing ring and in the middle of a fight. Techniques such as cameramen on roller skates, various frame rates being employed, and Scorsese making the ring smaller or larger to represent LaMotta's state of mind. And despite the film being shot in black and white, its violence remains pretty gruesome. The infamous sequence as LaMotta attempts to defend his title against Sugar Ray Robinson. He takes a savage 13th round beating, the ropes holding De Niro's character up as he's assaulted with an endless barrage of punches. Here we get blood spurting out of the fighter's face, running down the ropes and his legs, and at one point across members of the audience. Things build to a surrealistic nightmare by the time we reach Jake's final fight with Sugar Ray. The boxer's inner turmoil, the background of the ring stretching out into the distance as camera flashbulbs go off like shotguns, Sugar Ray looming like a monster out of the fog and laying on a severe beating, LaMotta taking it as punishment for all of his despicable behaviour and self-loathing. Now, I could get carried away talking about every minute of these fight sequences, but we also have to talk about the rest of the cast. Now, Joe Pesci, amazingly, in one of his first film roles, plays Jake's brother and manager Joey, and was nominated for Best Supporting Actor in a role that requires him to go toe-to-toe, sometimes literally, with Robert De Niro in arguably his greatest role. Pesci, like the rest of the cast, to be fair, has an authentic, streetwise air about him as he essentially acts as the mediator between his volatile brother and the rest of the world. And that's another thing that's great about Raging Bull, and an aspect that doesn't get mentioned enough, and that's its depiction of its Bronx Little Italy style rough neighbourhoods and the characters that inhabit it. Again, the black and white photography helps here capturing it, but the period detail on show, as you'd expect from Scorsese, is excellent. Now, more than holding her own here is a just 20-year-old Cathy Moriarty as LaMotta's wife, Vickie. Here, in her first ever film role, she was also Oscar-nominated. Moriarty debuts as pretty much a fully formed movie star presence, blonde hair, husky voice and legs that go on forever. But despite her awful treatment, she's a tough cookie and clearly toughens up as her life and the film moves forward.
Whoa.
Why? So you put your hands on me?
Open the door.
No.
Come on, honey, open the door.
No,
Let me
look,
talk.
Jake, I got a lawyer. We're getting a divorce, and I'm getting custody of the kids.
Hey, let me in for a minute. Come on.
No, I already made up my mind. I'm leaving. That's it.
Now, the secret weapon of Raging Bull, of course, is its editor, Thelma Schoonmaker. Coming off a couple of short films and TV movies, here she does one of cinema's great editing jobs, winning her first of 3 editing Oscars. So on a technical level, Raging Bull, I think, is the greatest boxing film ever made. Mostly because it doesn't concern itself too much with the world of boxing, but more with the world of the fighter. And obviously not just any fighter, but a fighter who will end up imprisoned for introducing underage girls to men in his club. A fighter who will sell the jewels from his championship belt to pay his debts. And a fighter who will beat his own brother and wife to bits in a fit of jealousy. Now, I didn't say it was an easy watch, but I did say it was a masterpiece. Go check it out.
He wanted to go.
Hey, Ray. Never went down, Ray. You never got me down, Ray. You hear me? Never got me down. Yeah? See? Look.